Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Henry Barajas, the Director of Operations here at Top Cow Productions. You are watching the Top Cow Beyond panel celebrating 25 years of Witchblade and everything that we are going to be bringing you for the rest of the year. Let me again introduce the Brady Bunch. We got Colleen Doran. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be talking about so many different projects here. We also have Stephanie Phillips, the co-creator of Amanda Mungy. We have the co-founder of, or the founder of Top Cow Productions, Marc Silvestri, co-creator of Witchblade, Darkness, so many awesome.
Cyberforce,
yeah, so many.
30 years coming up.
Oh, wow.
We also have
years of Cyberforce. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, I can't believe I was only 8 years old when I started that. Time flies.
We also got Matt Hawkins, the creator
Howdy ho.
Think Tank, Postal, The Tide, so many amazing projects.
And we have my
his
cat. Yes, and I have my other cat. And we have my other cat. And we have my other cat somewhere. I have 3. I'm a cat lady.
We also have we also have the amazing Stjepan Sejic, creator of Sunstone, has one of the longest runs on Witchblade. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, Stjepan, you're looking good. You're looking good.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And
I am the darkness.
We'll get to the darkness. Thank you for bringing that up.
Here, since Stjepan can't be on video, here's my artist's interpretation as he's talking.
Oh, nice.
I can confirm this is true.
Yeah, right?
Oh, sweet.
There he is.
Pretty good, right? There you are.
Comedy, man.
No wonder I do this for a living. Jeez.
All right, let's get started with Amanda Mungy. Stephanie,
Cool.
very excited for this new project that came out just this week as we're recording. It's just, a couple days since the first issue debuted?
Great book.
Yeah, fantastic book. And I really want to just say to you, Stephanie, that I really am impressed with this book. And, and you really should thank Elena Salcedo. She was your biggest champion internally and was championing you to us all the time. And I'm so glad we picked this book up. It's beautiful.
Oh, Craig did an incredible job on the interiors of it. And yeah, I mean, Elena's been great as we've kind of been putting together our little 4-issue arc of our pirate ladies. So it's been a lot of fun to work on.
It's nice to have that as our first book back out of the COVID insanity because it's solid in this new book. So I was very proud of that book. Good work.
Great job. Love it.
Yeah, and Stephanie, if you could please tell our viewers who are probably not familiar because they probably haven't been to a comic book store in a couple of months, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Amanda Mungy was based on historical female pirates, Anne Bonny and Mary Read. It plays with the legends kind of surrounding the two women. There's not a whole lot of historical written record, and what does exist all contradicts itself. But the legends are, I just think, really fun and playful, and to kind of play with this idea of why would somebody want to get on a pirate ship in the first place? Like, what were they looking for? What did they find? And so it kind of centers around the adventures of Anne and Mary, and some of it is based on as much historical information as we could find, but then really playing with a lot of the legends of all the things that they got up to on a pirate ship.
Hey, Stephanie, real quick question. Was that the fact that there is not a lot of history that's established, was that freeing for you as a creator, as a writer? Did you like that more than having more like backstory to deal with?
Yeah, at first I think it was a little terrifying because I come from academics where like I'm used to working in an archive and peer review, and like everything that I say can't be my own, like I'm citing somebody else. So I was doing a ton of research, and then especially when I started working with Craig, we started talking about what made this so fascinating were these legends, like these larger than life figures, and where did these legends come from and why are we so drawn to them? And I'm from Tampa, where we really like our pirates. We celebrate them at, we call it Gasparilla, where we take like a week and everybody just goes and gets drunk in the streets dressed like pirates. And this is to celebrate a fictional pirate, because I looked into this too, and I didn't know until I started researching for this book that Jose Gaspar, who this is based on, is also fictitious. So there were like all these legends of this buccaneer in Tampa Bay that led to this giant celebration and just this, again, larger than life figure. And it really drew me to wanting to talk about Anne and Mary as legendary figures. So I think it was a little freeing to kind of then be able to pick up a story that looks more at what a life of piracy was like versus, you know, here's when she was born, here's when she died, like really historical textbook information. So it's definitely more fictitious and kind of having fun with those characters.
You know, being in the comic book business, we're used to heroes and anti-heroes and all that. And I think if you want to describe an anti-hero, it would be a pirate, right? So what is it like for you, and I guess everybody, like, what is it that we love about pirates? I mean, everybody loves pirates, and pirates were not nice people. So how do you, as a writer, make the lead characters likable and still be bloodthirsty pirates?
So, I mean, one of the things we intentionally did was set the story at the end of the golden age of piracy. So in the kind of waning days of, like, you know, real high sea antics, the crown is trying to take back control of the sea. And I think that's really important because, like, merchant ships are getting destroyed, but piracy was like a really political act for a lot of people that were getting lost in a system that wasn't supporting them. So even people that were like merchants or serving on a merchant vessel weren't even getting the same amount of rights that a pirate was taking for themselves. So the act of flying the skull and crossbones became this really political act of saying, like, we don't like the policies enacted by the crown. For some people, I know there are also just like, hey, we get to kill people, there's some gold, that's cool. So there's like a really big array of motives. And one thing that seems to be pretty consistent is for Anne, she was escaping a marriage that she didn't like. So there seems to also be a lot of, for her, trying to escape a convention of what she was supposed to be. Mary was very interested in sailing, from what I've learned about her, that she just, you know, wasn't allowed to sail, wasn't allowed to be a part of the Navy, so this was kind of an escape for her, or at least it becomes a way for her to kind of express, I just wanted to sail a ship, that seemed really cool. So we're kind of exploring too the era of why somebody would be driven to that kind of life, and it becomes a little bit more nuanced, I think, than what we're used to looking at with I love Pirates of the Caribbean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I think we're exploring a little bit more of a detailed kind of a social political look at them as well.
Awesome.
Yes, and you can check out topcow.com, and there is Stjepan's cover B. They was released with #1, and there's a preview and links and diamond ID codes where you can ask your retailer or comic book store to pre-order the series for you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right, next we are really excited. Unfortunately, the global pandemic has caused some disruptions in our publishing schedule, and one of the things that was kind of paused was The Clock, that is by Matt Hawkins and Colleen Doran.
Yeah, and I have in the background, in my virtual background, do you see the Clock 3 cover, the one that you sent me, Colleen? I have it now. Thank you for sending me that original cover. I like having it. But no, The Clock was
so timely.
I know. Well, you know, I tried to remember when I sent you the first issue of the. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I can't hear you talking. Actually, while I'm talking, I can't hear you talking.
Oh, I was just saying, who knew it would be so timely?
Oh yes. Well, and that's like I think, didn't I give you the first issue like 4 years ago? I mean, it was a couple, 2-3 years ago, right? Yeah. So it was. I see people come to me and say, "Oh, were you writing this about COVID?" And I'm like, no, not really. I mean, I was just writing it about a general contagion. But the idea of, I mean, the basic story of The Clock is it's a eugenics conspiracy thriller about a scientist who's racing against the clock to try to find a cure for what is in effect a viral cancer that is wiping people out all over the place in weeks when they're not even diagnosed as having cancer. And so, you know, that's frightening enough. And the fact that it's the weaponization of cancer, which we find out very quickly that this is a man-made thing. And it's interesting that it has a lot of parallels to what's going on in the world right now. I think honestly, I think I probably came up with the idea after I watched Contagion 5-6 years ago, because it's kind of that's essentially the prototype for a pandemic, and it's not similar, but it's just sort of the basic idea of the storyline. So so Clock Volume 1 will be out in September. It will be a collected edition. I mean, the first 2 issues were released as 32-page comics. Since the shutdown, issue 3 would have been out a couple months ago, and issue 3 and 4 would have already been out. And then we would have put the trade paperback out in the fall anyway. Given sort of the time frame, and we polled a few retailers and talked to them about what they thought we should do, and then we talked to our distributor as well. It was sort of a consensus that we do not put out issues 3 and 4 and just put out the trade. And that was given sort of the delay and everything. So the trade will be out, and I'm working really hard on the back matter for that. And Colleen is furiously finishing it up. So in a month or so, you will have access to the Clock trade paperback, and hopefully you'll like it.
Cool.
And Colleen, congratulations on the Eisner nomination. And you've had a very busy couple months. Awesome. What was it like to go from high concept fantasy to a high concept sci-fi series, and having to change modes?
Whiplash. It does sort of mess with my head, and while I'm finishing up the Clock, I'm gearing up for another project right after. So so it is messing with my head a little bit, as if world events weren't already. But the Clock is very much grounded in the real world, and it needs a lot of research into particular locations and
like hallways, your favorite.
Like hallways, yeah. But it's it's like what does that room in the Smithsonian look like? Somebody's gonna know what that room in this Smithsonian looks like. You know what I mean? And you know me, because I'm like the queen of OCD, so that will drive me crazy if I don't have that research.
Blame the writer.
It'll just
Blame
drive
the
me
writer.
Sorry, I made it hard for you.
Yeah, well, I can't help it. I just research. It's been too much time researching, honestly. Somebody needs to just take my internet away. But I've really enjoyed drawing that. I liked drawing the characters. I actually based the main character on you, Matt. I don't know if you know.
Oh, really?
Jack, it's you.
There goes the sales. Sales are gone.
There goes the sales.
That's it.
Yeah, it's you, man. That's you.
Right.
Look at that.
That's too much research there, Colleen.
Too much, yeah. But hey, Colleen, I just want to tell you, I really have enjoyed your work on this book. I mean, one of the things I really like about working with you and the Sejics is you guys have such great facial expressions. I mean, you guys have this range of expressions in your characters that are really amazing. And you convey such emotion, and I really like, and I know Sejic, you're on the horn here too, but I really like that about you, your wife, and Colleen, all you guys' work. It's so emotion filled. I get kind of tired of the artists that only have 4 or 5 facial expressions, and there's a lot of them, but I just seeing the range of emotion you guys can convey and the detail. Honestly, Sejic, Colleen, it's an honor to work with you. So thank you.
Oh, shoot. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Stjepan, thank you so much for joining us again. Really excited. You've been so prolific lately. I mean, with all the work that you've been putting out. One of the things that just came out of nowhere was a new series that you're working on called The Queen in Woodbourne.
Yeah, I mean, that one's not going to be a series. It's going to be basically a webcomic in the same manner that Sunstone is, except it's more safe for work stuff. It's a fairy tale deeply steeped in Slavic mythology, and it was a recent thing that kind of popped to my mind and just wouldn't let me rest. And so I went into the development stage and writing stage, and now I've actually already started work on it. The plan for that one is going to be just a single kind of a volume story. It's going to be about 250 or somewhere under 300 pages long, and it's going to tell
300 pages.
Yeah, it's on the low end for me.
Yeah, that's like what, 2 months work.
And it's not 2 months work. It used to be much better, but nowadays with my shoulder being what it is, I don't think it's going to be quite that fast. But yeah, it's a story about basically this queen that got married out of basically it was a political marriage, and her duty to the crown was to to give birth to a son, so that a new generation of rulers could be established. And after that, like she starts noticing that nobody really cares about her anymore, to the point where the only person that cares about her in that whole court is her son. And so she raises the child, and until he is old enough to be taken by the king's advisors to be taught for his future role, and she's left alone. And so she turns to walking into the king's forest, and then later on trespassing into the forest of the gods, where into the Shimmer Woods, where apparently the old gods sleep. And the woods are guarded by this entity called the Woodborn. And through the story, we find out that the Woodborn herself is an ancient goddess called Morana. And one thing leads to another. Morana basically does the thing that you see in so many fairy tales. It's like, you have trespassed, you shall be punished for it. You will give me your firstborn child. And the queen panics and makes a deal with Morana that she will serve the Woodborn. And through her service, they befriend each other. They realize they're both exceedingly lonely in their roles, and they connect in a way. And a fairy tale turns into a romance, and then things escalate and lead up to a dramatic and quite wonderful ending, really.
That's exciting. And another.
It looks great, dude.
Yeah.
Always, yeah, it's terrific.
Another series or another story you're working on. Excuse me, Fine Print.
Fine Print is
available
already,
through your Patreon.
Yeah, just like everything else, I initially found it through Patreon and then later on publish it. And Fine Print is basically Fine Print is another story that's about relationships and love, and how sexuality and love kind of correlate or don't correlate in certain cases. And it's done through this kind of a very metaphorical approach of basically Fine Print is a story about Lauren Thomas, a woman who found true love at a very young age, but then made some bad choices that kind of destroyed her relationship. And when she tried to fix it later on, she didn't succeed. In fact, the person she loved was getting married to somebody else. So she kind of turned to vices and everything to kind of get it out of her system, to get herself to forget about love. So at some point she turns into experimenting with sexual stuff, and this attracts the attention of a succubi whose purpose is to kind of scout out potential candidates for their contracts on Earth. And Lauren is one of the rare few whose potential energy is so strong that she gets awarded the highest tier contract. Coincidentally, a similar contract was awarded before that to an asexual girl who is another one of the protagonists, who ends up being with this incubus who was very convinced he could fix her situation, and turns out there was nothing to be fixed. So he ended up stranded in a contract and ended up learning what a wonderful life it is when you don't have to think about just one thing. So he ends up evolving as a character, and it's basically a very Sunstone-like story, where but with a very strong accent on people being massively flawed and kind of growing through the story itself. So you have these big old bunch of really selfish people who are all kind of in it for themselves, and slowly, one layer at a time, the grime falls off, and they progress.
Stjepan, are you ever disappointed as a writer in the artists that you work with, meaning you?
Always. I'm perpetually disappointed. Like, I've never been a fan of my own work. I've spent over a decade working in an amalgamation of other people's styles, and realized I was going in the wrong direction. And then, the moment I stopped, Sunstone happened.
You found your own voice artistically.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever find, because I've started writing for myself as an artist, do you find that your enthusiasm for writing scenes and certain things that when you have to actually draw them later, you kind of go, what the hell was I thinking?
Sometimes it comes down to this. It's all about keeping yourself motivated and keeping your keeping your characters well directed. Because at the end of the day, I can take my characters through the most boring, mundane scenes while constantly kind of keeping keeping their core, keeping their soul invested in the story. And when I do that, like I can make pages and pages of characters sitting and just talking. But like I said, one of my personal tricks is before making any kind of a long-term project is I'll just spend like a month or two just kind of doing these little key shots where I would just kind of draw a character doing a thing and saying a thing that just kind of defines that character, that kind of anchors them, and it's done wonders for my work process.
Awesome.
And one of your most beloved characters is Bernie from Death Vigil. And that has been revived through your Patreon. What can we expect in the most highly anticipated series that people just keep asking more for?
Oh, I mean, I don't know about the most highly anticipated. Death Vigil certainly has found its fan base after the fact. But what you can expect is a big payoff on things that were established in the first story arc. And what you can expect is that by the end of the second story arc, I am absolutely going to destroy your hearts. Like no joke, the ending of Death Vigil 2 made Linda teary-eyed when I actually told her. So
you sound like a Bond villain.
It's going to be a strong one.
I have to say, Stjepan, Death Vigil is your favorite work of mine. Just FYI, I really enjoy it. It sort of is in my sweet spot. I know we spend a lot more time working on Sunstone and Swing and stuff like that, but I really enjoy Death Vigil, and I really actually like talking to fans about Death Vigil.
Ooh,
So it is my favorite work of yours.
Thank you.
But I'm glad you're able to come back to this series at least in a capacity that works for you, especially with your current.
I owe it all to my readers and fans. I really do. This would have never happened if it wasn't for my Patreon, if it wasn't for people's overwhelming support. I can always do well with Sunstone, but it comes down to that question of whether or not it's worth spending time on adding other projects. And people spoke up. People wanted more Death Vigil, and it's one of those. They put their money where their mouth is, and the story progressed, and here we are.
And speaking of Sunstone, I know you have 20 years.
No, not 20 years, 20 volumes. 20 volumes are planned for the series itself. So currently, I'm finishing volume 7 of the second. So that would be the second volume of the Mercy story arc. Mercy story arc is gonna be the longest one. It's gonna be a 9-volume one, set up as kind of a trilogy of 3-act stories. And after that comes the Jasper story arc and the final volume, which will be Ali and Lisa's wedding.
That's exciting. No, I mean, it's definitely a series that, and when we do a lot of conventions and everyone's always asking about you, and there's so much enthusiasm for it. So thank you.
Actually, we haven't done a lot of conventions of late. I don't know if you noticed. I actually had
when we were
8 conventions cancel on me. I don't know. There's this thing called COVID going around. I don't know. FYI.
Yeah. Which kind of, I mean, that sucks because I think all of us as creators, we spend a lot of our time, alone in our creative space. It's always been nice to go out and mingle and talk comics with people that read them and love them. So we're looking forward to returning to that aspect of the business, very much so. So thank you all out there for your support of what we do, and we look forward to seeing you again in person.
Yeah, it's we miss seeing you in person. It's been kind of sad of late. We want to get back out there.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you, Stjepan.
Yeah,
awesome. Looking forward to everything.
And
so you can hop off now, dude, if you want to hang out with us.
I'm here for duration.
Okay, awesome. Then hang out.
Cool.
Awesome.
And
Thank
then you can help us talk about the next volume of Swing. Matt, please take it away.
Snap. Well, Swing volume, is that 2 or 3? That's volume 3. Volume 3 should be out in a month or so. And it is Yishin Lee and I did the same team as 2, and you know, this is sort of taking off immediately from the end of the second volume, where there's sort of this cliffhanger ending, and you know, it's the same stuff. It's ethical non-monogamy. It's a couple exploring their sexual preferences and figuring out what's okay for them, and sort of that exploration is the fun of it. And you know, there's a lot of neuroses and interesting things, and this has been a really fun book to do, and it is currently of all the books I do, my bestseller. Go figure, Sejic, it's my bestseller. You know, you know, there's a lot of interest in the future volumes. I mean, the sales on this book are solid, so I think I have a planned 5 volumes, and if it continues to sell, of course, we'll do more. You know, it's like Sunstone was originally a planned 5 volume, wasn't it, Sejic?
Sunstone wasn't even planned originally. Sunstone was just a thing. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I remember you saying, "I'm doing 5 volumes." I'm like, okay, 5 volumes came, and then suddenly there's a 6th and a 7th, and you know, we're going to 20 now, so it's all good.
Done tricked you.
Well, it's what happens when you work on a project you like. You know, I mean, I think a lot of times these projects kind of take on minds of their own. You know, like you start working on them, and you start working with these characters, and you start getting all these ideas and storylines, and it's a lot of fun, you know. And I have to say, working with you guys on this slice of life romance stuff over the last couple of years, and Sejic, you and I have talked about this many times.
Yep.
It has definitely made me a better writer. And Sejic, you've told me that many times. And
it has evolved your character writing on a level that you just never had before. Like, and that's the beauty of slice of life, you know.
Absolutely, and I can see it. See, that's the weird thing, is when I go back and read my work, and I read the pre stuff and the post stuff, I can actually see the difference in the work, and you know, so I've evolved, and you know, this is my workload right now. I literally have 450 pages left to write by the end of the year. That's a lot. So I'm a little shocked at the volume of shit I have to get done. You know, weren't we supposed to be out of work with COVID? Wasn't that the idea of it? I seem to have more work than ever, so it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, speaking of Linda, she has so many cool projects that she's working on, like Punderworld is such a fun project that you can watch. Yep. You can read now for free on Tapas and Line Webtoon. Stjepan, I know you get to probably hear a little bit more.
She's not here, unfortunately, right now, because she's asleep, because right now it's it's 1 a.m. and we have a really weird sleeping schedule. But yeah, Punderworld is Linda's take on kind of Greek myths, in this case of Hades and Persephone, but she has further plans beyond that. So she's already developing an additional story about Chiron and Chariclo. So she's doing this kind of really lush, kind of a comedy-laden fantasy that's basically like a fairy tale on its own, and it's a romance, and it's both, you know, heartwarming and endearing and hilarious, and this kind of it's the environment that she truly thrives in. Like, ever since I've met Linda, and that's been over 20 years ago, like some of the first stuff that I've always seen her draw were Greek mythology, gods and heroes and all that stuff. Like, people don't know that about her. Like, she's been doing this from the earliest days that I've known her. And for some reason, just recently, she kind of started just kind of doodling, and this came on a tail end of her going, like, we used to have these conversations where she would be like, you know, I'm only ever gonna have Bloodstein. I just have one book in me. I'm like, just give it a moment. She's like, no, seriously, let's just have one. I'm like, sure, hold that thought. And then later on, she's like, son of a bitch, you were right.
There you go. Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, no, please send her our love, and
I will.
We appreciate. Yeah, no, I can't wait to get that get those new stories on paper. Here we go. Let's keep pushing forward, and we are now celebrating, of course, the 25th anniversary of Witchblade. Mark, how does it feel to see the enthusiasm at this point, but it hasn't softened? It just keeps growing and it keeps sustaining.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, and we're at 25 years now with Witchblade. You know, there was an opportunity for us to kind of tap into something that hadn't really been tapped into that much, with a strong female lead that could be the front character of their own book. And Billy Tucci kind of opened that door a little bit with She, and you kind of saw like, okay, this is a real opportunity here. So when we put Witchblade together back then, we thought we had something really cool in our hands, and we thought it was going to work. But we had no idea that it was going to work at such a level. You know, and Spawn, comics, TV shows, toys. It's been great, you know, and we appreciate the fan response from day one. And we still get, obviously, people coming in with their well-read copies of issue 1 of Witchblade that they've had since it came out. And it's always just wonderful to see, you know, and we're hoping to reward people moving forward with more cool Witchblade stuff that they're going to really just love.
Yeah, and we had a lot of folks back our most recent Kickstarter. Here's one of the add-on goals is we did this really cool keychain based on the Stjepan artwork from his historic run with Witchblade. And we're also putting out the latest Witchblade Complete Edition, Volume 1. And we have plans on doing more with later volumes.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for the Kickstarter success that we had with Witchblade. You know, thank you for that love and allowing us to really put out some cool stuff and put together a nice fat book of the things that you're familiar with, plus some new surprises in there. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, and we also have plans to put out the reissue 25 anniversary edition of the first issue.
Mm-hmm. Which hasn't been out in quite a while, right, Henry? So if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
It's a few years.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the complete issue number 1 plus some added materials.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it is a commemorative edition of the original Mike Turner, you know, Dave Wall, Marc Silvestri, Christina Z, Brian Haberlin #1 issue from 25 years ago. It's collected with the original cover. There's been a slight tweak to the trade dress. And there's like a cover gallery in the back and some historical information on Witchblade and like some merchandise that we've done over the years. So we're all very proud. Look, it's rare that any company gets characters into the 25-year range, and the fact that we have such a strong female lead character 25 years ago was unheard of. You know, I mean, there was Wonder Woman and there was Witchblade. You know, and now there's a lot. So we were definitely I wasn't there at the time, but Top Cow was definitely ahead of the game.
Definitely. I guess, should we tease our next Kickstarter?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the amazing response from the Witchblade Kickstarter, we're gonna do the same with the Darkness.
Yes.
Try to give some more unique opportunities and things that really just make it special for our fans that have been following us all these years.
Yeah, every time I go to a convention, the Darkness comes up a lot. And it's one of my favorite characters that we've ever done, and it's one that's near and dear to me. And the fact that people just love Jackie Estacado as a character and love the Darkness as a power and what the burden is on Jackie and how he handles it. Yeah, it's to me, it's very rewarding that we took a lot of chances with that character. A lot of stuff that wasn't really mainstream that we put in Jackie. We added the horror and the fantasy element into the superhero element, which we kind of did with Witchblade, obviously. And it's a formula that's really worked for us at Top Cow over the years. And with the Darkness, bringing him back in this collected edition of things that, you know, books that haven't been in print for quite a while, new materials, and we're really excited about that. Yeah, so, and again, we'll have more details moving forward, but it's something to look forward to. Henry, what can you talk about it?
Well, I mean, the program will be very similar to Witchblade, you know, so it'll be in like a slightly oversized hardcover containing the first series and a lot of extras and stuff like that. And we'll have some merch, and so it'll be a similar campaign to the Witchblade campaign, and we're excited to bring it out.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we just today, as we're recording this, had released the Top Cow Talent Hunt winners for our last session that highlighted Postal, which I have here on my desk, the oversized collection.
Yay!
By Matt Hawkins, Brian Edward Hill, Isaac Goodhart, Linda Sejic, and so many amazing creators.
Yeah. That's a good looking book, huh? It's heavy.
Yeah.
I like that. You can like hit people in the head with it. It's good.
So, and Matt wanted to talk a little bit more about what we can expect for the next talent hunt.
Well, we're going to be doing a talent hunt. It's going to start spring of 2021. So you don't need to jump on it now. But when this airs sometime in July, we will include on the Top Cow store a set of books you can buy that would be for the talent hunt for next year. It's going to start in the spring and run to the fall of 2021. So, I mean, if you want to start doing some of the research for it now, you can. But we won't even be releasing the rules until April or May. So that's a ways off. It's about a year. It's about a year off, honestly. So it's got some time, but we're going to be doing Witchblade, which ties into the 25th anniversary of Witchblade. And so, you know, buy the Witchblade, you know, soft cover and read the old books and start your research if you want to write or draw Witchblade.
And the talent hunt works. It's something that we're very proud of. And I think there's people around here that are familiar with the talent hunt.
Yeah, Stephanie. Weren't you
Stephanie,
hired that way?
Like,
yeah,
it's like, so I mean,
Living
obviously.
It was an amazing opportunity to be able to write in the postal universe, and then, you know, obviously have it translate into so much more stuff that I'm doing in my career, both with Top Cow and DC Dark Horse, and kind of expanding from there. So it was a great start for me.
Do you remember getting that email saying you won? How'd it feel?
Oh, it was on my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, yeah.
Yeah, it was on my birthday 2 years ago, I think, that I got the email. And
That's awesome.
I was like, I know a couple, at the time I was like, I know a few people in the comics industry. Has somebody pranked me? I don't know. I had submitted it and, you know, forgot about it for X amount of time, because I was just like, man, there's no way it's yelling into the wind, right? So it was really nice to be selected and know that, you know, it was a blind review process, and to know that you know, that kind of gives you a little bit of confidence in the industry to kind of get your foot in a bit, and then just kind of pushing it forward.
Which is a great thing. You know, to me, you know, one of the benefits of starting Image and Top Cow and such was always giving fresh new talent a platform to show what they could do. And when we started doing the talent hunt, it became a real thing and a real source of pride. And one of the things, and Stephanie, you mentioned that, you know, with Top Cow, DC, Dark Horse, and all these other places, like, we want to make sure that people understand, like, look, the Top Cow talent hunt is to give you an opportunity, right? To give talent, writers, artists an opportunity to be seen and to be published. What you do with your career after that, it's all up to you. You know, we're not saying you need to stick with us. That's not the point. The point is, we want people that maybe thought they could not get into comics to not realize their dreams. Like, no, this is one way that you can. And then the longer you stay with us, the happier we are, obviously, for us, but also we want you, the people that are entering and people winning, like Stephanie, this is about your career. This is about what you want to do with your life and your career. And we're just happy to be a little stepping stone. You know, like, go ahead and then do what you want to do. So, but we appreciate everyone that contributes their fresh talent to the talent hunt. We thank everyone that all the fans out there that buy these books, buy these talented new creators, and supporting that. We're all in this together, right? All of it. So thank you to everyone.
Yeah, and I think Stjepan got his start through the Top Cow forums back in the day, right?
Yeah, and you're never getting rid of me. Haha.
Damn. Oh, okay. There's a double-edged sword. Ah, I see. I knew there was something wrong with this.
And speaking of giving creators a hand up, one of the titles that we're most excited to put out later this year, especially for our retailer partners, another book coming out, Stairway Anthology. This is another example of Top Cow and Matt Hawkins given voices that have either never been published or are very new to making comics an opportunity for a bigger stage.
Yeah, we like doing that. You know, it's like giving people a chance, you know, because I think Mark and I talked about this 5-6 years ago when we first started all this stuff. And like, there were definitely people that gave us a chance. You know what I mean? I mean, Mark gave me a chance. Rob Liefeld gave me a chance. You know, I mean, people gave me a chance, and they've given me multiple chances, and I'm still here, and I'm happy with the job and the work I'm doing. And I think, you need that in a job like comics where there's only a few hundred comic book writers. You know, there's fewer comic book writers than there are people that play in the NBA. You know, I tell people that and they're sort of shocked, but it's true.
We put out a question and answer. We have some questions here on Instagram. This is for Mark and Matt. When is Darkness coming back?
That's a good question, isn't it?
Big,
very good question.
Yeah, it is a lot of the questions, and that one is from MG Maz on Instagram. Thanks for asking that.
MG. Well, that's as I alluded before. Darkness is one of my favorite characters. So never gonna let Jackie go. And speaking of Rick,
Never gonna leave.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
We have plans for the Darkness, which we don't really want to get into yet because it'd be premature. But let's just say that fans of the Darkness will be happy about what we're going to announce, and when it's proper time to announce it. And again, a cryptic clue is that I love the Darkness. I've been wanting the Darkness to come back in a big way for a long time, with my personal involvement in it. And again, staying cryptic, personal involvement in it. Not going to say what that is exactly, but it is a big personal involvement. And there is something coming. And I hope you guys love it. And just be a little bit patient for a little bit longer. We can make some formal announcements.
And that goes the same for Witchblade. Again, a lot of questions on Instagram and Twitter asking about the return of Witchblade and the Darkness. So that's in the works.
Yeah, basically the same answer. Yeah, but we have some really cool people that are also excited about Witchblade, that we all will be sharing some really cool announcements. And again, thank you for all the fans of Witchblade and Darkness. Thank you for your support over the years, and thank you for your patience on waiting for new things. And you won't be disappointed.
And it's not a con without con exclusives. This is our stay-at-home Witchblade 25th anniversary commemorative edition that you can only get at the topcowstore.com. And we're also going to be reintroducing and putting out new prints celebrating the 25th anniversary of Witchblade. And here's a classic Stjepan piece. And just please, if you can, check out the topcowstore.com. We personally pack and ship all of these items, and there's been a little bit of a delay with the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you so much to all our fans and customers that have been bearing with us during these interesting times with our U.S. Postal Service. Let's see.
Interesting times is a nice way to say it. But
yeah,
definitely.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Aren't we all privileged to be alive at this time? In all times of history. Wow, this is great. There'll be a lot of stories to tell after all this clears up. And again, I think we're winding up here, but everyone, we'll be seeing you soon, hopefully, at these cons. And again, thank you so much for your support of not just comics, but of us over the years. And we've got cool stuff coming. And again, always remember that we're comic book fans as much as anyone else is. And we're just fortunate enough to be in the business where we can actually make these comics for you. So we're all in this together. You buy comics, we can make comics. We make comics, you buy them. We're a team. That's how it works. That's the machine that entertains all of us. So thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anybody have any final shout outs before we say goodbye to all our viewers?
Well, I just I want to make sure that everyone goes and follows both Colleen Doran and Stjepan Sejic on their Patreons, because those are important, and it's both for them. That's the way they communicate a lot with their fans. I know, Sejic, you do a lot of like Twitch type broadcast shows where you're talking about stuff. And I'm not sure if that's Twitch or YouTube or what you do that on.
Twitch.
Is it Twitch? Okay.
Twitch. Yeah.
So yeah, he does a lot of live streaming. I've watched a few of those. I don't know if you've seen me lurking there in the background, dude, but I have watched a few of your streams. I just put it on while I'm just hanging out. You know, I don't say anything because I'm just curious what you talk about and stuff. But it's definitely entertaining. You do a good job keeping the fans entertained.
Thank you.
But no, I'm real bullish on a lot of stuff we've got going on for the next year. I mean, you know what Mark's talking about with Darkness and Witchblade, what Sejic is talking about with Fine Print and Sunstone, and a lot of the other stuff we're talking about. We have we have a really solid lineup, and we're excited for next year.
Yeah, 2021 is going to be absolutely ridiculous.
I like
Off
it.
the hook. So.